All right, folks, we should get started. And I understand the group on the far right was gung-ho to go first. That's just the information I have. So where's your written record? Ah, okay. All right. Very good. Very good. Excellent. Yeah, that's a good spot.
No, that's just my note.
Yes, you could, you know.
No.
It's okay.
Yeah.
All right, I could put the computer there and you can see the cable right there.
Got it.
Okay, so we have Miss Ashelle Ford from what I will call, because they went first, group number 1.
Hi guys. Okay, so our group decided to split our toolkit into what we thought were the major components that should be involved in a toolkit of this type. So the first component, just jumping right in, would be engagement of policymakers or government, because we thought that encompassed what we were trying to accomplish in that there are certain core persons or agencies that you need. So government, the regulator, people who make the legislation, that sort of thing. So the activities that will fall into engaging that specific group would be lobbying them to support initiatives that may not necessarily be on their radar. And in doing that, I think we can all appreciate that there's the way you would engage that group of persons may be different to how you would engage, for instance, academia or the technical community. So we thought that through a few ideas, but taking advantage of the activities that government is already participating in, they have their own projects and programs, and offering to support them in those projects and programs, and in so doing, being able to bring our issues into those arenas, whereas we probably wouldn't have had a voice before. We figure it would be a little bit more palatable if we're offering to assist them in projects that they're already doing. We acknowledge that government and the regulators react to public pressure. So under this component of the toolkit, we would have activities that essentially increase that pressure in areas that we think are being not given the attention that we think that they're due. So we'll be leveraging our work with the multi-stakeholder community to apply pressure in key areas and to develop mechanisms to keep that pressure up and to develop it. Okay, the next component was participation in regional and global AGS and other local AGS and other events of that nature, because we felt that it was okay to have a local AGF, to say we're going to have a local AGF, but what are we going to discuss in this local AGF? We don't want it to become an echo chamber of just issues that are relevant in that small area. We felt that taking part in other forums of the type and in other regions and in other places would help to make the topics under discussion at our IGF more robust and help in terms of having more participation. So having diverse topics for our meetings are going to other AGS and other community interest events would assist us in developing those topics and including more relevant topics in our own AGS space. An example of this would be participating in events that are not necessarily directly towards internet governance, like entrepreneurship activities and youth groups and that sort of thing. The next component would be a PR campaign / education. We thought about leveraging the media, the newspapers, televisions, the radio stations, etc., to get our message out there. Social media as well, in producing, posters, infographics, that sort of thing. We felt that it was a good idea to leverage existing organizations. All of our nations have NGOs, and some of them even have NGO associations. So in getting the word out there in education and public relations, in that we want to tell people there's internet governance issues that we want you to be involved in. We could leverage existing organizations, ask to be invited to their meetings, ask for a space on their stage to speak to their members, because they already are organized, so to speak. And we would leverage that in order to get the word out there. Roadshows was another example. And education in terms of, we felt like we needed to make a distinction between PR and education. So PR, yes, we want to tell people there's an internet governance forum. What do you do at internet governance forum? Why is internet governance and why is it a thing? Why is it a thing you should care about? But education, we wanted to actually, we didn't want it to be a situation where it's a lot of tech speak. There are things that need to be explained. A great example would be Albert and his tests on the alphabet soup earlier. So that educational component, we want to make sure that when we go out and we talk to people, we are not saying IGF and IETF and ISOC and nobody understands what we're saying. So we want to focus on that education component as well. Funding was that's the fourth one, the fourth component. We discussed a few different ways that we could get funding. We felt that it was important that government be a part in this area, that some funding should come from government. We discussed whether USFs would be appropriate in that context. We also talked about how governments can support without literally writing a check in some cases. So for example, offering space for our events and human capital in terms of persons to help do the groundwork, that sort of thing. We felt that we could leverage the expertise that we had within our multi-stakeholder group to do events that would attract consultation fees or fees for training. For example, if you had a cybersecurity expert to go into businesses and you can charge a fee for that. We discussed donations and grants from the usual suspects. IGF Secretariat, ISOC, ICANN, those sorts of agencies. We also discussed doing research and being able to charge for the research projects. The research products that would come out of that research. That we thought that would be a way to garner funding as well. We didn't want to essentially leave it up to government to give us all the money, and then, if government decides not to do that, you can't have your local AGF. The last one was stakeholder representation. We discussed this and we thought we needed a component to make sure that we are not just saying that we're a multi-stakeholder forum, that we actually are a multi-stakeholder forum, that everybody that has a stake, that has an interest is being represented. And we felt the way to do that was to do a continual assessment of whether or not we are representing all of the stakeholders. We felt that by looking at all the organizations that would benefit from any initiatives that we were doing and making sure that they had a voice, that they had a say in what we were doing, and to allow the stakeholder groups to tell us who they wanted to represent them, as opposed to going in and say, well, we want your CIO to come and sit on our board. We felt that it was appropriate to have them tell us who they wanted to represent them. And yes, stakeholder representation was the last one. Do we have to take questions? Right. So that was our toolkit, the 5 components of our toolkit. If anybody did have questions, no, great. Y'all were a great audience. Thank you. Thank you very much.
I have a question, unfortunately.
Of course you do.
You did say these things, engage policy making, the policy making that like governments and so on, and participating in global and regional fora and so on. Who would you say you saw as the driver, the primary actor? Who would is it a particular stakeholder? Is it a team of some sort, or what?
Well, we felt that there should be a sort of steering committee, whether you wanted to name it that, right? That especially came up when we talked about the stakeholder representation, that there should be some persons on that stakeholder steering committee that represents the stakeholders.
A group of interested parties who want to...
A coalition of the willing. We borrowed that from our colleague.
Right. But, well, the jargon that they used in the IGF from the outset was dynamic coalition. Right? A dynamic coalition, a loose, informal group of like-minded individuals who motivated enough to try to do something. Right? So that's, I suppose, would be your main actor suggested here, and they can take these specific approaches. All right, thank you. Very good. All right, so do we have someone coming forward to speak on behalf of another group? And that will by default become group number 2. Oh, and Ashel, you all will email me your stuff, right? Okay. Yes, so we have ATN coming forward.
Right. So what our group decided to do was start with the output objective, and we decided we need to identify initially the who, since the goal was to actually create multi-stakeholder groups, was to identify which groups, who do we want to attract. So we started with government of Belize, Ministry of Education, Balaipo, Baja, FIU, educational institutions, University of Belize, Galen University, all the private tertiary institutions, NGOs, UNDP, PAHO, TIDE, UNICEF, NGC, and the private sector, Chamber of Commerce, Mennonites Business Community, San Pedro Chamber of Commerce, Leisure Association of Businesses, BLPA, BTIA, Bankers Association, directly interested or more direct stakeholders in terms of, stakeholders in terms of the ISPs, the telecom license, other telecom licensees, the Belize ICT Association, the regulator, and then on the judicial side, obviously the judiciary and the Bar Association. And then we decide, well, how are we going to communicate? And then we'll talk about the what. So we identified all the usual, the internet, social media, radio, television, possible working groups that are already established that we can take this to. And then we decided the how. And we decided the best way to actually get people interested is to offer some sort of competition-based, incentivized national program. The total prize $10,000 for the group that comes up with the best ideas. But to have some sort of something that would grasp people's interest, and the best way to grasp people's interest is money. So again, go to lobby groups to get some sort of funding, whether it be gifts or other money or gifts in kind, to put a program together to be able to incentivize people to engage. And the other big area we thought that we really need to look at is to sensitize and educate generally everybody about what internet governance is, to ask them to plant the seed initially and say, what do you understand of what internet governance is before, and give them a small amount of information as to what internet governance is, and then get their feedback, their initial feedback through all the different mediums that we presented initially. The reason why we decided to take this approach is because, number one, it'll show who's actually interested in different sectors, who's actually interested in internet governance. And then from there, use those people to form the groups, form the different groups in each sector. So some of the other ideas we came up with was town hall meetings, setting up a website to facilitate emails and collaboration, maybe a Dropbox center, roadshow. And then in terms of the development and operations and administration framework and the identifying the roles and responsibilities, the consensus was there's no use reinventing the wheel. We approached people like MAG in TT and MAG in Barbados and basically use the framework that they have already established and just Belizeanize it for it to work for us. But the idea for us was, because from the people in this room, we have a very, very good grasp and idea what internet governance is. And we felt that we shouldn't, although we should give the general populace and the different sectors an idea of what it was, we also felt it was very important to let them come back to us with what they felt internet governance should cover, rather than tell them we're looking at this. So those are one of the key areas that we thought was very important. In terms of establishing core resources, again, I think everybody said it over and over again, going to the usual suspects, whether it be any sort of NGO that will give us some sort of funding towards this. You could use the PUC as the hub. They've been great at manning different programs of this sort, and they are one of the key stakeholders. And again, I think we've covered the engagement strategy, we've covered the building of the support network. And then once we did that, we identified no more than 3 to 6 months max to be able to get all that together, and then be able to, once you've identified people who want to be a part of it, then invite them to be a part of different focus groups, and then go on to the actual development of the operations and administration to come up with, to formulate what we believe should be the internet government stance for Belize. And that's our opinion. Any questions?
Questions or clarification?
None from you?
No, not really. I heard a common theme about the education part that's required, The target groups that were identified, talked about how to contact them and how to motivate them, which is fine. And some of the you said you talked about funding, and you said that was where you said the usual suspects.
Yeah, the usual suspect
right.
in terms of PC and everybody else.
Right.
Everybody goes over who to
Okay.
fleece for money.
Right. All right. Thanks.
Right. What we started off by doing was figuring out that our group of people, we would need them to be in two levels. We've got the general public. We want this thing to be a main function, underlying theme is that this needs to be open and inclusive. That's the theme of everything that we're going to have, has to be open and inclusive. So that means that the audience, the participation, the audience, the people who are going to participate, not audience, participants, have to come from the broadest possible cross-section. And these people, we cannot say no or do not know anything at all about internet governance or whatever. So we determined that we need to run in two levels. The first one would be to create the group that would organize and manage any sort of forum or event that would have the participation of the greater majority. So we determined that there were principles by which we should form this working group, because we didn't want to call it steering committee because there was a rough consensus that people did not like the word committee or steering because it was too controlling. So the basic thing was we would have various stakeholder groups and there are individuals. We put out an open call for a reasonable length of time, that as well, to make sure that people, for example, in the Belizean context, both in the north and the south, not just in the central of the country, can get access to the information that this call is out there, that they can participate and give them a reasonable length of time to do that. Because if they don't have enough time, then it's as if we just didn't bother to invite them at all. And yet again, open and inclusive. So other ways we would do, we'd have the open call for reasonable time, utilize all channels, and we would also include an expression of interest survey because we need some data to find out what they're interested in, why they're participating, what the resources we're getting into this group. And we found that it's extremely important, depending on who is the organization or the group of people who make this call for participation. It has to be a neutral group, a group that is not okay, so we wouldn't have Digicel or Be Mobile make the call because obviously they have an agenda. I mean, that's their job, they're a company. But so we want a group or an individual or person or company that is neutral but influential. It wouldn't work if we had, Joe Blow come and say, hey, come out and do this. We need someone who can galvanize the people who are to say, yes, this is something important, but still someone neutral. So let me skip over all of that. Right. One of the things that was very important was the inclusion of too many experts. That sort of thing, apparently, we've determined, gives us a suppression of conversation. A lot of the people who are not experts will feel marginalized, left out, afraid to open their mouth, afraid to put out their ideas. And the idea of all these things is we need them to be open and inclusive. One of the things that happens, as you notice with Albert's thing, is that when experts get together in a room, we use jargon, we influence people, we frighten them, and we cut people out of the conversation. New people feel very, very left out when you come to a meeting because we're there and we throw, we're there and we throw out our acronyms and we throw out our terms, and they're sitting down there going, huh? And then they realize, oh my God, I must be stupid. I don't know anything. But that's against our main principle of openness and inclusion. So it might be even better to have an internet governance forum in a location where there is a low level of general knowledge of internet governance activities. So the forum is not a place for experts, it's a place for people who have an interest and who are curious. The kinds of people who, when they drive a car, want to know what happens underneath the hood. Okay? Organizational aspects. We have terms of reference, and we consider the terms of reference for the working group, the criteria, considering putting in a series of criteria to say this is the minimum that we expect of people who are on this group. The number of members, there's some issues that we have with regard to which number of members we have, because we do want to avoid capture of the group. So we need no more than a certain number from each stakeholder group, because you don't want any one group to be too strong and push the decisions towards a particular area or direction. Independence, no conditionalities with regard to funding, consensus decision-making, no voting. Voting is bad. No, well, it really is. Voting creates an adversarial system. Voting means somebody won and somebody lost. But if we go to a consensus-based system, we talk until we are all equally happy or unhappy with the solution. Everybody's reaches a point where you're comfortable-ish, and you say, okay, nobody's lost, nobody's feeling bad, nobody's won, feeling good, and yeah. And that's part of the reason that consensus is the main way that things happen in multi-stakeholder groups. Financial independence is important. How do we do that? It's very, very difficult to take money from a company or an organization that has an agenda and not expect them to want to push that agenda on your event or on you. So ways to do that could be kind of a trust fund where people donate. There's also the concern of sustainability, but we can have people donate into that fund. And we don't know who gave how much or what, but we do know that these are the people who helped us out. Thank you very much. Put them in alphabetical order. Lovely. And we don't have to worry about, well, Digicel gave us money and B-Mobile gave us money, and we have to discuss net neutrality, and Lord have mercy. Obviously, you know which way the net neutrality discussion is going to go if we want to have another one next year. Right? The same people want to pay. We want the same people to give us money. So we don't want that. Term limit. We need a strong moderator in the group. We need term limits. Why do we need term limits? Because people get accustomed to sitting down in a place, they get comfortable, what? And we want renewal and refreshed people and ideas in the group. And the longer you stay there, the more an expert you are. And we don't want experts, remember? Right. So the way to choose members we considered is a combination of individuals self-nominated by the open call and representatives from stakeholder groups who were brought in also by the call. We're not going to go out and handpick people. And having created our steering committee, our non-steering committee, our working group, then we say, okay, what are the methods that that group can use to encourage and excite people about these issues and to come to this forum and to participate in the forum? So first, the national stakeholder issues to foster interest. We wanted to make it personal because people are always interested in how anything affects them. So if we're talking to business people, if you come to this, you can help determine how e-commerce goes forward to suit you and help your business. If you're a teacher or a student, you can come to this, and these are going to be able, and you can help decide on the policies and actions that are going to help you teach or learn using the internet. We connect it all back to individual self-interest, because nobody ever went wrong betting on people wanting to do the best for themselves. That's the first thing. Short-term gains and making sure that we recognize achievement, because a lot of these things are really, really long-term things. People get bored. They get turned off. You don't see what's happening. You need to see something quickly. So you need to find some short-term gains that you can have as big thing. You put it in the papers, get everybody excited. Yes, we got something done. Because watching an iceberg melt is not a very exciting thing. But eventually will melt. That's what you want to do. But sitting there and watching it, yeah, you want to see the chunks fly off as it gets smaller. Outreach in their particular area and capacity building via training, which gives us more people who are knowledgeable about what it is they want to do and what they want to get out of their participation. And I think that's it. Any questions?
In terms of what I heard, so we started with a group that would basically aim to pull together the wider forum.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to call it a steering committee, and again, where are these people coming from? Is this like a...
Well, the idea would be, yes, an open call.
They would facilitate the open call for the wider thing, is what I am understanding.
But they're double open calls.
Okay.
The working group
Yes.
formed by an open call, which was done by someone of neutrality and influence.
All right, I get it.
So, for example, we might ask the president of the country to say, hey, this is what's going on. You know, we need a champion of influence. And once that's happened, then all these people get together and become the working group.
That's an interesting idea. It could be, say, a group of people, like, as I mentioned, like a dynamic coalition, if I use this IG jargon.
Mm.
In another case is someone of influence, and ideally from a kind of a neutral place.
Yes.
Getting the process started by attracting individuals or some team to get a bigger forum going together. Okay.
Mm.
And then
kind of like how
the
WIGIG was formed
Mm-hmm.
when Kofi Annan called us
I see.
to go and join the WIGIG.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
But some names were nominated, and some people he just called, and that's how the 40 of us got. That's how the working group on internet governance got created.
And I guess he sort of find some balance.
Yeah.
Some nice balance group. Okay.
Exactly. And honestly, if Kofi Annan calls, you can't say no, right?
Right.
See, influential and neutral.
Right. Okay, understood. So we have to find Kofi Annan surrogates in the individual countries of the Caribbean. All right. Good. Questions? Any others?
A group. Anything I left out? Or did I cover everything? Okay. Yeah, I covered more than I...
She just explained it more. I think so. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Jack. Okay, this is this is a good time to remind you to fill out your forum evaluation forms, and this is really focused on the last 2 days, today and yesterday, because we would have done one for Wednesday already, which was a somewhat different type of session. And we would welcome your candid comments, because the intention is that we improve as we go along. So we would certainly want to know if there's anything that was lacking that you think we need to do differently. Now, this is the part of the session where, having gone through the 3 days, you get an opportunity basically to say, bring up any point that might have occurred to you in the work that we would have done during this time. All right? We're doing the evaluation form, yes, but it might be that there is a particular point that wasn't fully discussed, or you still have a nagging doubt, or there's something that you want to bring up. And we've allocated some time for what we call the open mic, where we could start any other discussion or bring up any other point from anyone in the audience. So we're starting that right now, and I see a finger is up.
Hi, thanks very much, Nigel, and starting the open mic, Kevin Swift, for those who probably can't remember. I just wanted to make a point which I think is very relevant for this work and this space we are in, and it deals with the youth. I think we mentioned it, but it's just to see if somewhere there is a dedicated call to have youths involved in this sort of activity, whether it refers to going out and speaking to them at academic institutions, at Girls in ICT Fora, because in reality, the internet that we are trying to shape isn't necessarily just for us. The majority of the users, the majority of the innovations we expect from the Caribbean is actually coming from that age group, which isn't in the room at this moment. So I think if we can just have that in focus, some sort of dedicated call, all of us in our respective roles, in our respective companies, could reach out in whatever way we can, whether we mentor a couple of students who are thinking of a career in ICT, whether it is we participate in forums that exist and talk about internet governance and the need to become involved. So the internet we want to see in the Caribbean, that is an internet that is supported by youth, and I would just want to emphasize that. Thanks.
Thank you, Kevin. We have time, so. Kasha.
Hi. Well, if I'm going to follow on from Kevin and mention maybe things that we just talked about in passing, girls in ICT, and in a broader sense, gender issues as it relates to internet governance forum. So if I get to plug anything, let me plug my pet project. This year for Girls in ICT in Barbados, the Barbados ICT Professionals Association had a panel discussion as part of their Girls in ICT activities. And the thing that stood out for me at that discussion, I was asked to be part of the panel. And it was 3 of us. We spoke about our experiences, our challenges, where we think we should go with this issue. And an audience member, and when we were taking questions from the audience, expressed the sentiment that he thought girls in ICT or doing special events to encourage girls in ICT was a non-issue. I've encountered that sentiment in other spheres as well. And I feel like it is not something that should be mentioned in passing in this forum. It's something that we need to actively address, because you can't fix a problem when you have a group of people who deny that there is even a problem. And by not addressing it, you don't want to play into that aspect of, oh, it's not really an issue. So I just wanted to mention that. and say that I hope that in future forums we can have more of that discussion, because it's something that's going to be addressed at Global AGF as well.
Okay. Someone can say it's not an issue, but I mean, it certainly has recognition, because at the global level, there is recognition. At the global level, there is recognition. And certainly in the CTU, the head of the CTU is a woman. So, you know, I don't think we'll have any difficulty supporting that at all.
I want to just challenge that a little bit and take the discussion in terms of the gender issue. And, you know, the question is really, is there really a girls in ICT issue? And I want to take you back to the education system, because what we found in education systems, particularly in tertiary level education, that girls are right now totally outnumbering the boys. And and as I'm saying, the thing is, and this is just for general education, what we've realized is that I remember hearing a lawyer once made a statement, and she said, part of the issue is that boys, in some cases, or in an increasingly number of cases, are being brought up in single parent homes. All they know is mommy, and when mommy isn't around, is either granny or auntie. They go to school. Most of what they have, particularly in primary schools, is female teachers, so they know miss. There is a lot of focus on the girls in terms of women's lib and women's rights and that kind of thing. But somehow we've started to neglect the male and started to neglect the development of the male. And now we are seeing a proliferation. And when I say proliferation, I'm not saying that this is bad, don't get me wrong. You are seeing a lot of females rising in professions generally, which were normally targeted as male. And really and truly, the playing field is balancing out. So my thing would be going back to what Kevin is saying and trying to do more youth in ICT, not focusing too much on females, but trying to create a balanced playing field and trying to develop youth as a whole rather than one particular gender. That's just my take on it.
The gentleman.
Yeah, gentleman is there.
I used to work, and I had can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
And
would you introduce yourself for us? Since this is the first time you're speaking.
My name is Victor Lewis. I'm a power system engineer. Born at Tree. My birth certificate legal. I used to work, and a young woman worked with me, and she kept telling me, catch up with the time. So be careful of what I say, because I might be really out on a limb. I do not agree with you, nor do I agree with you. What I've seen over the years is that we started on a wrong premise. Adam tell God that a girl there make her eat the fruit. That's nonsense, okay? That girl, Eve, was part of a group. Don't hold her accountable and make the man dodge. Secondly, we have another premise that is flawed. We say the man is the head of the house. Nothing can be more flawed than that. In my view, my mother didn't do a bad job raising me, but I want to say that my wife and my two children did a continued job of raising me, because when my mom dropped me, he never done the job. My wife and 2 children picked it up. And for me, our women way ahead of women. Not today, long time. We have neglected our boys. We teach them how to drink beer. Okay? We have not taught them how to grow. So we need to look at, firstly, for me, getting our boys back into participation. We have put our boys, and I want to be forgiven here, I beg for forgiveness here. We have watched our boys come to the junction where they kill each other too often. Because one, we raise girls, we do not raise boys, we drag them up. We teach you how to wash. We teach you how to cook. You wash your brother's clothes. You take care of the house while your brother do what? He go play basketball and he go play football. So when you are 20, you are partly grown. He still only picnic. Wait, another. You take the job. You want a man. Reasonable. I can buy that. You want a man. You're designed for that. So you take one. But you will find yourself with a tough job because a man never done the job. So you have to raise the 3 children you and you plus raise your man. Okay? So we're in a position where, for me, our men are deficient when they come to the age of 20, and they need to bring them up to her level at 20. We need to work more with our men. Thank you very much.
Now, remember too, we are in the, it is open mic, and it is that there might be interventions or actions that need to be taken based on the comments being raised here that mightn't fall exactly under CIGF kind of things, but maybe more generally in the ICT space, right? So if we could just keep that in mind as well. Carlton?
Okay, thank you, Nigel. You know, with this women in IT issue, I have always had a different view, probably because of how I was socialized. When I went to high school, boys were in the minority in the class. There were 23 girls, 13 boys. 23 girls, 13 boys. When I left and went to university, there were more women in university. At the present time in the University of the West Indies, the gender balance is about 70-30. 7 women out of every 10 students, 7 are female. I have hired lots of people in private sector positions. I probably hired one of the first female engineers, data engineers in Jamaica, and I had 3 of them. What I know is this: there are more females in the IT business, but it's where they are in the business that is the main issue. Very often, it takes them longer to get to a leadership position, and that has to do with the societal. If you look at the competencies, and this is where we are totally together on this, the average female in IT is a lot more competent than the male. I tell you, I hire preferentially women. I do, and I make no apologies for that. I preferentially hire women because when you get them a job, I don't have to go back 3 times to ask them how it's done. They come through and they get it done. The issue is more baseline than that, as far as I'm concerned. In this dispensation, what we need is to adopt at the training level an element in the school system that says we are going to train people almost as if we were training in coding paradigms. logic and how you assess logic. We try to push them too early into science or art, and we have this dichotomy. And in my view, it really is about helping females into leadership positions. That is where I think the opportunity lies. It's not so much the lack of female in the sector, but where they are in the sector. And to me, it's a low-hanging fruit for you to find ways to enable leadership, female leadership in the sector. I don't think it's a lack of numbers at all. Thank you.
That's
Isa Valley for Telecommunications Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. With all due respect to the gentleman that spoke before, I think that's basically a lot of it is a flawed parenting. A lot of those problems are flawed parenting by not teaching boys, right? But anyway, at the Telecoms Authority of Trinidad and Tobago, we have a lot of women working there, but at the professional levels of engineers, telecommunications engineers, we have 1 woman and about 10 men. I used to work at the operator, telecommunications services of Trinidad and Tobago. Nigel also used to work there. And the amount of women engineers, technical engineers there, I would guess was in about, maybe about 8 or 9 or 10, right? Whereas there would be about 50 men. And nobody could tell me that's equitable. There's no way that's equitable. So there's something wrong, right? Now, there have been other programs put in other countries that have looked for minority action in the States. When it came out, minority action looked like it was racism. To me, it did at the time, by giving minorities preference in jobs. I was in Canada, I was living in Canada when minority action came out in the States. I said this is simply racism, right? By giving blacks and Hispanics preference in jobs over whites. But when I looked at it a few years later and continuing, and I saw the effects of it, well, first of all, I'm a believer in the Machiavellian philosophy of the end justifies the means. And I understood that the people that thought about that had great vision, right? They had great vision and they knew what they were doing. So in the beginning, it may look like something like anti-racism or whatever we want to call it, but had great vision to do it, right? So I am very much supportive of girls in ICT and getting them more involved in ICT, because from what I see and where I work and where I have worked, the representation of women in technical professional fields is very, very much lower than men.
Good evening. I'm Sonia Burns. I'm the IT manager for Belize Water Services. I'm just going to put in my two pence worth just to keep you happy over there. Yeah, I mean, I've had a relatively long career in IT, and I have to say, girls in ICT, we are still the minority. Every year I go and talk to University of Belize's graduating class. There are more girls in there, but definitely not anywhere near to being even halfway through there. Also, when I hire, I would interview a girl just because she applied, whether she met the criteria or not. I just don't get it. However, I think that maybe, and we were discussing this earlier, is that maybe what we'll see in the future is more girls getting interested in IT, because it's not all noughts and ones anymore. It's web design, mobile design. We're using more and more technology. Girls in the past were only really looking at, you know, oh, well, the boys are playing computer games, they're playing shoot 'em up games. I'm not really that interested. I got things to do. A bit of what this gentleman was saying, you know, I got chores to do as well. So I think maybe as we see going into the future, we'll have more women coming into the ICT field, purely because as young girls, they're much more involved with it than when I was young, and I won't tell you how long ago that was. So I think we have to try.
I'm about this, that busy. I just want to share here with a colleague here from BWS. We had an opening, I would say about a month ago at the office for a technical person, right? And we put up an ad, and I was really disappointed to see the amount of the applications that came in, and the applications that came in, there was not even one application from a female. It was all male, and we only received about 12. So, but before that, I had called the university, and I spoke with the chair and asked her, you know what, we have an opening. Maybe, do you have any students who have graduated that maybe they are looking for a job? Or no, I was expecting, I left all my information and everything and expecting a call from the chair, so from the university. I never received a response. But I found out that some of the students that go on internship, they go to internship to a law firm. They're studying IT, but they go to internship at a law firm, at an office where there's not much technical or IT related career there, no? So I just want to share that with you, and also because of what he mentioned, I think here in Belize, from my experience that I've seen, I haven't seen much penetration with females in regards in the technical field. I know that more in the programming, because recently they had an opening as well, and we did receive more participation application from females coming into the programming team. Actually, we have a programming team that actually is they have like 3 females and 2 males, so which is good, but they're more in the programming itself.
Okay.
Well, my thing isn't about the women in ICT. I mean, I can say a quick thing on women in ICT because I've been working in the field for a long, long time, getting girls and young women into technical fields. And one of the things that we did notice is that girls tend to go into fields where they see women, not whether you can tell them you can go and so on. It's not, what they need to do is see it. And some of the projects that we worked on back in the day in Silicon Valley and so on were in getting images of technical women. For example, if you, in a regular TV show, the mom is always a lawyer, sometimes a doctor. So we started getting people to start writing in the mom being an engineer. And so on. And then that works with regard to that. So the more women who go in, the more girls will follow. That's something that we've learned about 20 years now, right? So we need to be out there. We need to be visible. Yeah, we need to move up. We need to be visible. We need to show people, show the youngsters that, yes, this is possible. But that wasn't my main point. My question with regard to ICT and internet governance in the Caribbean is, how do we get people involved? We have a lot of people in ICT. We have a lot of people, male and female, in programming and engineering and so on. But where is the policy development? Who is being trained to work in ICT policy? Because that's what we heard about. That's what we need. That's one of the spaces that is very, very underserved. We don't have people who understand how to develop policy, what policy is, and how to connect the technology and the technical side that you know with implementing it, implementing the policy, implementing regulations, implementing laws. We've got lawyers who connect somewhat to the IT side, but not very many. So that, I think, is something that we really do need to work on.
Well, agreed. We could take some comments on that, and realize too that the workshop was about that, because we feel that an effective approach would be if we could start developing these national fora, and through these national fora, getting more people involved in all the aspects, in the technical aspects, in the policy aspects, in the legal aspects, all of these things related to ICT and internet governance. And hopefully, it's not a overnight thing, but over the next 3 to 5 years, hopefully, if we are successful, we'll start seeing the numbers, the pool of available individuals increasing.
Hi, Roosevelt Blades, independent consultant. Just to touch on the topic of girls in IT, the trend in Belize, as the person from BWS mentioned, there's about 80% of students that apply in the IT program at the University of Belize. And there seems 80% male in comparison to female, sorry. And there seems to be a trend because the Public Utilities Commission sponsored a Raspberry Pi jam, and we had a training program for teachers. And in that program, there were about 30% female and about 70% male teachers. That's countrywide. Teachers from all over the country we targeted. And then when we actually had the Raspberry Pi Jam, where all the students came from all over the country to show the different projects that they had put together, the trend was right there, that we had more male students than female students. And whilst we want to target the young people on a whole, there has to be an emphasis to try to encourage more females to get involved in ICT.
Okay,
I want to please ask, whatever your name is good with me, that I think you were asking to put the topic on the agenda permanently. That way well, I would like to see the topic on the agenda permanently. This type of thing should not happen by chance.
In terms of the CTU, it is a topic that we have addressed, and we tend, it's just how we have done things, and we've tended to deal with this, and even the youth topic as well, when we go do our Caribbean ICT roadshows. In the Caribbean ICT roadshow, it's basically customized to a particular country, whichever country that we go to, but it has a certain basic core. Yeah, we deal with the communicating the power of ICT as the engine for innovation and development generally. And in that 3-day, 4-day, 5-day, as the case might be, program, we would have a youth forum, right? And there would also be, well, there have been also forums in there when the girls in ICT thing has been addressed. And as I said, the Secretary General of the CTU is a woman, so she plays a leading role in that, in any such stream that we might have in an ICT roadshow. In the case of this particular event, our focus tends to be more on what the internet governance issues are, as opposed to ICT generally. It's somewhat more narrow. But this is not to say that that we can't find a space for the gender equality. In fact, we hear about the gender equality issue coming up in the context of internet governance as well. So maybe what we're hearing is that maybe is a question to consider whether or not it should start to become one of the priorities in our focus in internet governance. So I'll take the note and we'll bear it in mind.
two comments, but I'd like to make an observation on the women in IT or ICT. We did a conference last year with IEEE, and we had the Science Foundation and Cisco academies and a lot of people. And one of the observations from the Carleton University and our own university where we are, the women in engineering were finishing largely their MB or BAs, but not going on to their MA and PhD programs, which was an interesting phenomenon. They also made observations that the dropout rate in the industry itself, women not staying in engineering in Canada and the United States, is quite high as well. So those are two serious issues, and I don't think they're investigating it, but there's some real parameters there. But I want to go back to what Jackie was saying. I know ICANN is rolling out a pilot project on teaching people or helping people write policy. So that might be something worth replicating, working with ICANN on that, because in our case with ALAC, losing people like Jackie and Carleton, they're really not replaceable. They have such huge amount of knowledge, and there was no mentoring program to speak of. And they basically, when they leave, or people like Evan Leibovich and stuff, it leaves a massive hole. But on the internet governance spectrum, you got every Dory, you have a number of people from Brazil and Netmundel, Renata. I would say I know more women in internet governance from a global perspective than men. Absolutely, probably close to 70% are the key people I know around the world on internet governance. And that's actually an observation I like to say. I don't think there was many women on the panels. That's maybe for an equity point of view, nor are that many women in this audience. So if we're talking about equity, we have to look at this room. I think it was very, very underrepresented.
Good evening. My name is Christopher Hudson from Central TV and Internet. For me, having woman or having male involved in information technology, I mean, if it's your niche, it's your niche, and you tend to move towards whatever you have a liking for. My problem is more with the educational system. It has a tendency of teaching you more of what to think about, in the sense of it teaches you IT, it teaches you English, they teach you math, but the application is lacking. You understand the how-to when you come out of the education system. You understand, how do I apply this information that I gathered from the university, from sixth form, from high school, or from wherever? You understand, to me that's not being taught, and it's something that's lacking in generally. Understand, in the education system. So for me, that's my thought. I think if more how-tos are incorporated into the curriculum, you would have more people getting involved in initiative like the one that we have here right now, because they come with application more so than, well, you have the knowledge, but applying the knowledge is a completely different thing, right? And I think that's lacking in the educational system.
Yeah, that's the problem solving. Yes, definitely. And that comes from, I guess, exposure to real life projects, right? And maybe that's a mechanism that could be considered to build the capacity of the graduates in learning how to apply what they've learned to solving problems.
Hi. Because I spoke before, I just want to make another brief comment. So when we're looking at the priorities, and we know in the Caribbean we are in the developmental phase of ICT and the internet, we look at access, not only in terms of supply, access to information. The case was made here in Belize about information not reaching particular parts at an appropriate time. But what I wanted to highlight is that the internet governance field is increasingly complex, and it's not just about us in the IT, ICT field, in the hard skills. It's actually about many other types of stakeholders who may not recognize this as an issue to follow. Because on the one hand, we have internet as an issue. On the other hand, internet is pervasive. I have seen with my own eyes a lot of trade discussions where we become passionate about our sectors, our agricultural sectors, our tourism product. And when it comes to the ICT and e-commerce chapters, we go silent and we sort of say, well, give them what they want, without understanding it's actually these platforms where a lot of the business, a lot of the commerce is actually happening right now. So my main comment is for us to encourage as well that it's not just about one skill set or one skill type or about internet governance. It's not just that you have to work in internet or work in an internet company, but understand that because it's so pervasive, that it's not just the IT and ICT fields as you traditionally look at it. You have civil society, you have trade people, you have a number of other people who have to come into the foray and understand that this affects them as well.
I just want to add a quick comment onto Kevin's, because I have a note from earlier today about the need to get students involved, but not just ICT students, because it's not a single thing. ICT is a cross-cutting thing, internet cross-cutting. And so I'm wondering, why is it maybe our university should start looking at putting ICT into the courses in public policy, in law, in economics, and in business, because we need these people to have, knowledge about the environment in which they're going to be doing these jobs. These things are not just, you can't build public policy without figuring out how internet and technology fits into it. You can't build law without knowing about internet, and so you can't be doing any law about crime without thinking cybercrime. You can't be doing any law about financial services without knowing about technology involved. You can't be discussing economics without considering how the technology plugs into that. And well, business is very clear. There's no business without technology nowadays. And down to things like agriculture. How do we use technology? And there are some people who are doing research on that, but we need to get the farmers using technology in order to be able to plan to know what's going on with the weather, to plan their business, to sell their produce, to price it properly. You know, all that sort of stuff. Everyone needs to have it. It's more important. It's almost as important as knowing how to read right now. And we don't have that across the board. And we need to start putting that into education from very early on. Not just how to use a computer, but what it means to utilize technology in these different fields.
Okay, we are at 4:30 and I don't see any other hands going up. Right? Oops, I see a hand.
I'm all for overtime. Okay, Ian Campbell from CTU. Just 2 quick points. First one is with regards to women, girls in ICT. I'm new in terms of, not ICT, but in terms of IGF and so on. But this is my first actually full IG forum. But I sat during certain segments at a remote hub with the LAC IGF. And my observance with regards to participation, most of the participants were, yes, men, but quite a majority of the presenters were women. So yes, there's an imbalance, but the presenters, quite a few of the presenters were women. So I am not going to say yea or nay with regards to the general comments from both sides with regards to the proportion of men and women, more so women in ICT. Secondly, I just want to say, this being my first Internet Governance Forum, I thought that the pace was very comfortable in terms of the first day, where those who were not up to speed were given an opportunity to get on board. And the general sessions and participation, both here and remotely, were acceptable. I just want to say also, despite the fact that the general talk was that the room was not full with Belizeans, but what I can say though is that the Belizeans who were here participated fully and give all of us some knowledge and encouragement to return to our countries and put into action. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ian. And I'm reminding you all again to fill out the kindly fill out the evaluation forms for us, so that as time goes on, we'd be doing a continuously better job at running these fora. All right, I think then that we are pretty much